Welcome to our continuing series of Virtual Voices, focusing on the 17 United Nations Sustainable Goals. We are very honored today to have Ambassador Dr. Yuriy Sergeyev, who is a Ukrainian diplomat and a scholar. From 1992 until 2016, he occupied senior positions at the Ukraine's Ministry for Foreign Affairs. He was director of different departments, first deputy minister, then state secretary, and served as his country's ambassador to Greece, Albania, France, Bahamas, UNESCO, and United Nations. As an academician, he has his doctorate from the Institute of Linguistics of the National Academy of Science of Ukraine. He taught at the Kyiv State University, Polytechnic and Agricultural Institute Katibougou in Mali, Yale University, and since 2017, he is the visiting lecturer at UNITAR, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. Since 2020, he is a research scholar at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, University of New York. Ambassador Sergeyev holds a diplomatic rank of Ambassador of Ukraine. First rank of public servant, Ambassador Sergeyev is a member of the board of directors of WIT also. Over to you, Ambassador Sergeyev.
Thank you, Christine, for introducing me, and thank you for inviting me for your webinars, which are very important. The topic of today is exactly about the United Nations goals, and it is connected to the goal 16 on justice, on peace. I will present it in a way as you advise me to navigate the geopolitical landscape as the pretext of the Russian invasion into Ukraine and what is going on now in the global politics. So the ongoing war unleashed by Russia against Ukraine is a consequence of the global processes after the end of the Cold War. The former rivals entered the period of so-called corporative world order, when interests started to prevail values, when the liberal world began to invest in authoritarian economics, which ultimately helped to strengthen them. We do remember a huge amount of Western technological and financial injections in Russian private and state businesses, notably in gas and oil sectors in the 90s. We were not surprised that some of the Western leaders were directly involved in Russia's state businesses. For example, the former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who was invited on the board of the Gazprom. And all this happened at the time while Kremlin was killing thousands of Chechens who demanded their right to self-determination. The collective West swallowed Russia's annexation of 2 Georgian territories in 2008 and kept doing business with Russia. Instead of battering aggressor, the collective West appeased Kremlin. From his Chechen and Georgian stories, Putin learned that he is allowed to do whatever he wants on the territories of the former USSR. The turn of Ukraine has arrived in February 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and then unleashed aggression against Ukraine on the east and southeast of the country. I do remember the time well when representing Ukraine in the United Nations. We called the emergency meeting of the Security Council on February 28. Since then, we got strong moral and diplomatic support from majority of the UN community, including Western partners. I am grateful to former American ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, for her outstanding stance in the Security Council. She was several steps ahead of official structures in Washington. We managed on March 27, 2014 to adopt at the General Assembly of the United Nations resolution entitled territorial integrity of Ukraine. Unfortunately, our efforts at that time did not return Crimea and did not stop Russia's aggression. Unfortunately, measures introduced by Western partners against Russia were insufficient. Sanctions were very weak. More than that, some Western leaders called not to humiliate Russia and to look for diplomatic solutions. Some of them even advised to recognize the right of Russia over Crimea in order to preserve integrity of the rest of its territories. Some of the Western governments and their business entities stated in favor of lifting sanctions against Russia. Russia's propaganda machine was efficient in global brainwashing. Its flagship, Russia Today, functioned openly in practically all world capitals. Putin again learned lessons from such Western impotence and in February 2022 took the decision to grasp the whole Ukraine. On the far-fetched pretext, Kremlin troops invaded in Ukraine, dreaming to take Kyiv in 3 days and the whole country in a week. Putin's plans failed. The second largest Russian army was stopped by comparatively not numerous Ukrainian defense troops and volunteers. Still, Muscovites haven't succeeded with their tactics to take more territories on the east and southeast of Ukraine. They are not able to win on the battlefields and therefore turn their military operations into terrorist acts. Aggressor state whose population is 3 times bigger than Ukrainian and whose huge military potential is incomparable with modest Ukrainian one, including thousands of nuclear rockets Russia got from Ukraine due to voluntary nuclear disarmament of Ukraine in the 90s under Budapest Memorandum. That is why international assistance is so important. It is not for nothing that they say that a friend in need is a friend indeed. The war has shown who has become a true friend and helper for Ukraine. Many countries continue to provide us with necessary assistance and support. Russia's insidious war against Ukraine, unleashed on February 24, 2022, changed European history once and for all. Europe and the rest of the world have united for one purpose: to preserve Ukraine's independence and ensure the unprecedented defeat of the Russian Empire for the European and global security's sake. During almost 15 months of full-scale war, Ukraine received record-breaking assistance from its allies. And it was not only military support, but also humanitarian aid and assistance to refugees who had to flee from the brutality of the Russians. Some examples: Poland. After the war began, Poland became a very important partner and proved to be a true friend of Ukraine. From the first minutes of the invasion, the country was one of the first to provide military equipment and humanitarian aid. The Poles were the first country to announce their readiness to supply Ukraine with heavy tanks for the deoccupation of all the occupied territories. As a result, Kyiv received more than 200 Soviet-style tanks and 14 Western tanks. Warsaw also did everything possible to accommodate Ukrainian refugees on its territory. Britain. The British people and government have become Ukraine's main allies in Europe in terms of military equipment. With the help of British weapons, our military has liberated and continued to liberate the occupied territories. It was London that launched the process of supplying Western tanks, which Ukraine so desperately needs. It is London that decided to supply long-range rockets to Ukraine. The decision was taken recently. The United States. The United States of America unconditionally ranks first in terms of funds allocated to support Ukraine. Since the beginning of war, Washington has provided Kyiv with $73 billion, including $44 billion for military needs. America is a leader in all criteria for supporting Ukraine. The United States leadership has managed to unite NATO countries for long-term assistance to the Ukrainian army, which continues to fight for the freedom of its country. In particular, the Ukrainian army has received major weapons from the United States, such as HIMARS and two Bradley armored vehicles, Patriot air defense systems. Recently, the United States announced the allocation of another package of military aid to Ukraine, an amount of $1.2 billion. In addition, the US government has repeatedly provided Ukraine with financial assistance to support the country's economy. The European Union, second in terms of assistance to Ukraine, in total the countries of the Union have allocated almost 55 billion euros to support Ukraine during the war. These funds were divided into military, financial, and humanitarian aid to Kyiv. This is a real rallying around our country among the European states. It's interesting to give some examples of a small countries of the European Union who, in terms of gross domestic product, leading support of Ukraine. For example, the Baltic states and Poland are the leaders in providing assistance to Ukraine. Estonia spends 1.1% of its gross domestic product on military aid to Ukraine alone. Latvia, 1%. Lithuania, 0.7%. Poland, 0.6%. It's much bigger than other countries of the European Union. Western leaders in Japan have promised to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. President Biden has repeatedly stated that the United States will help Ukraine as long as it takes to repel the Russian invasion. Ukraine can count on the United Kingdom to continue to support it for the long term, said Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. It is important to mention that Ukraine is receiving assistance not only from the Western world, but from Africa, Asia, and Latin American countries. A part of military and financial assistance, we are grateful to our Western allies for assistance in forging global diplomatic support for such initiatives as Crimean Platform, President Zelensky peace plan, and creation of international tribunal to bring Russian war criminals to justice. All the assistance we have got until now helped us to deter Russian troops and even to liberate some territories. But aggressor is still in Ukraine. Through Muscovites from Crimea, Donbass, some regions on southeast of Ukraine, Ukraine needs further assistance. Unfortunately, we observe that some important partners are tired. Due to delays of the promised weapons, the Ukrainian counteroffensive expected to launch this spring has been postponed. Western financial and military backing has been robust thanks to Allied unity. But as political, military, and financial analysts remind us, past performance is not a guarantee of future results. In Europe and the United States, variations in public opinion are increasing as the war continues. For example, the share of Americans who say the United States is doing too much for Ukraine has nearly quadrupled, and the portion of belief that Washington has not done enough has halved comparatively with last year. Many Americans count that the United States should urge Ukraine to settle for peace as soon as possible, so the costs aren't so great for American householders, even if that means Ukraine will lose some territory. Sentiment about Ukraine support has become increasingly partisan. One of the leaders of US Congress, your audience have, and around the question if Ukraine was supporting, and if so, why?
Thank you very, very much, Ambassador. That's a very, very precise analysis of what is going on today. And it is good that you're addressing it because there's a couple of people from Washington that are listening to this. I will now turn over to Susie, who has the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Gerbak, and thank you, Ambassador Sergeyev, for the informative presentation. We have a few questions from our audience, including, what were your duties when you worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine?
Well, so I joined Ukrainian diplomatic service in 1992, and I headed the information department, and I was a spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Then I was promoted as a director of the bigger department of analysis and information. Then, after several positions abroad as envoy to United Kingdom, then ambassador to Greece, Albania, and so on, I came back and I was the first deputy minister responsible for coordination of all Ukrainian foreign policy and ministerial contacts with other governmental bodies. And at that time, I headed Ukrainian delegation on the talks with Russia on the Ukrainian land borders. We succeeded and we signed an agreement. It was in 2003. Thanks to that, we got the land borders. I couldn't imagine if we don't have this agreement, how to manage things now when the aggression is and the enemy entered. Well, after that, I got the position in France and the UNESCO, and after that, I was in United Nations for more than 9 years. Well, in a tough period from 2007 until 2016. Then I retired. They moved back to academic work, as Christina explained, introducing me.
Thank you. And how has the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine changed today since the time you worked with them?
Well, the new generation arrived, got experience working on the junior positions, and so they are good enough. They are better than we were, economic and the society, but they failed. And so, as it happened before, the system in that country, in that space, changes whoever in the power, whoever. Khrushchev appeared in mid-50s criticizing Stalin. Well, in a few years, he was dismissed by the KGB. Well, Brezhnev arrived, everybody applauded him. Well, he was de facto dismissed because failure of the communist ideology there. So we trusted Gorbachev, but he was the same, unfortunately. And that's why it was not so difficult in Russia to throw out Yeltsin. Well, and who was put in the position of president of one of the biggest countries in the world? Lieutenant colonel, even not a colonel, lieutenant colonel. He was chosen by the system, controlling the budget, who is controlling minds. So it's not about the Communist Party. It's about of those who have the control over the people. And first of all, the secret services. That's why the again appeared.
You have also served as a visiting lecturer at UNITAR, which provides training and research opportunities to individuals and organizations within the UN system. So how do you see the role of education and training in promoting peace and sustainable development in the world? Well,
UNITAR is a unique organization. It works in several dimensions. Well, first of all, it organizes lectures, workshops for the newly arrived diplomats. Well, to help them to understand how the whole system works. UNITAR helps to bridge the knowledge of the past with the new realities. It means about all the resolutions which were adopted decades ago. As well as UNITAR organizes the debates on different issues, informal debates. Informal debates, that's why it's very important for the diplomatic community. At the same time, UNITAR opened doors for those who want to learn about the United Nations from outside the UN diplomatic community. So who these audience represents? Students from around the world, scholars, practitioners. So this semester, so the classes for this category of audience, they are organized in 2 semesters, in the fall and in the spring. So this semester, spring semester, we had people from students from Australia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, well, of course, from American universities, and practitioners from different spheres, from medical and so on. So there are the UNITAR invites the scholars from different sectors and ask us to share some specific topics. I have my seminar entitled International Criminal Justice and Diplomacy. Well, so the students, they are to write some semester paper, and we are advising them. This semester I have a few students from JJ College who are within that seminar, and some others from other countries. Well, so this is important, interesting job, and so it gives the access to the broader audience, as I told you, practically the whole continent here. That's why exactly what world information transfer is doing. So I had a chance to meet students in your office. They were from everywhere, from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, from India, from. It's very important. It's very important to give them the alternative vision, and to involve them in the discussions and debates. I'm glad that Professor Dubok invited Ukrainians. The big group of Ukrainian interns is on the permanent list of the World Information Transfer. Thank you for that.
I remember you speaking when I was an intern years ago too. So thank you for that. And so the next question is, how, in your opinion, do foreign and Ukrainian media cover the war in Ukraine correctly?
At least what I'm watching permanently and reading permanently, I found that BBC is doing a good job, very good job. So European media, Deutsche Welle is there. Greeks, even Greeks, they are there, and so they are bringing correct information. Well, so of course there are publications which is not always pleasant with their analysis. But we know who stand behind them, and what are their political visions. Well, so that's why it's normal. They have the right to think like that. We, of course, if we don't agree with that, we are reacting. It happened several times with the former Fox journalist Carlson. Well, but it happened even before the war. So that's why the majority of the international media is doing a good job.
How does Russian propaganda abroad affect the supply of humanitarian aid to Ukraine by Western partners?
Well, unfortunately, Russian propaganda is very strong. It has history of the Soviet Union, how brainwash or wash brain around the world. So it happened. They invest a huge amount of money in fighting people, politicians who can voice on their behalf and in the right way. So, as I noticed today in my introductory, that until recently, the flagship of their propaganda, Russia Today, well, was present everywhere. It's not easy to resist them, and so they are inventing different narratives of their own, well, to diminish the assistance which are coming to Ukraine from abroad. They are creating different stories that allegedly we are selling these ammunition, armaments, weaponry, and whatever to the third countries. So the only way to resist that, to oppose that, to invite those who reveal the falsification from the Russian side. Well, so their propaganda mostly addressed to their own people. Look how the Russian population is supportive of what Putin is doing. So they are selling them lie. Even today, they published a list of Ukrainian politicians and generals who were killed recently by Russian soldiers. It was not true. So to resist this this propaganda, Ukraine needs the partnership. We can't resist it alone. The only way we are succeeding it is inside Ukraine, because people they observe, they know, they are watching what's going on in Ukraine. How people are suffering. Well, so that's why Russian propaganda in Ukraine doesn't work. But Russian propaganda works in some of the capitals and where they have some political support. That's why we are counting on the partnership with the broader community.
What ways can we prove to the West that Ukraine needs more help? Can Ukraine's counteroffensive change the West's attitude toward the war?
What's going on in Ukraine is not the war against Ukraine only. Putin announced that, look how he changed his narratives. When invading in Ukraine, he said that they are organizing this military campaign to counter Ukrainian Nazism, fascism, and to demilitarize us. Well, but now he is explaining to his compatriots that what they are doing in Ukraine, it is the war against NATO countries who are using Ukraine as a platform, as the base to destroy Russia. So what he is doing, what he is telling, and how they encourage their own people, as Stalin did before the war. We are in danger. Also was used to explain the people why a huge amount of money going not to the social needs, but for the defense, for offense, and so on and so on. That's why the new narrative in his domestic policy. Well, the West is an enemy. The West is a danger for existential danger for Russia. So that's why the Western partners they should understand that Ukraine is in the front line to defend ourselves, of course, and to defend our neighbors on the West. So still the danger that if Russia succeeds in Ukraine, who is the next? Baltic states. So Baltic states. That's why Baltic states is so helpful in providing different kinds of assistance to Ukraine, because they do understand defending us, they are defending themselves. So they're investing in our defense, and through that, they're investing in their own defense and security.
In your opinion, will the West be able to provide Ukraine with F-16 fighter jets? And will the Ukrainian army be able to deoccupy Crimea with the help of foreign weapons by the end of this year?
Well, timing is it's a difficult question. So, but sooner or later, well, the territories will be liberated. I can't give this prognosis when we succeed. It will depend on different factors. Of course, we will need further assistance from the West. We can't resist Russia in terms of the quantity of our soldiers. So they don't count their soldiers. They are throwing these cannon meat, well, and will continue to do that. So, but to resist Russian military potential, where they have the huge amount of planes, of tanks, we are not available ourselves. So that's why we need we need this assistance. So we are getting it from different countries. We are asking for more sophisticated weaponry to be compatible with the Russian military potential. So for the time being, hopefully we manage to resist, even to deter. But the question is that who is ready to supply? We are getting this assistance from different countries. As I told you, Poland was the first. Yesterday, Croatia sent 8 helicopters of the Soviet type. And we do understand that this is not so sophisticated as American Apache or something like that, but at any rate, this is something which we need. It was a long discussion. It's still going on. What kind of the weaponry to supply to Ukraine concerning the range. The range of the rockets and so on. But a few days ago, the United Kingdom decided to supply the rockets of 300 miles range. Well, so this is something which could help to deter Russian troops on the approach to our territories. Well, so as to F-16, the discussion is going on. The voices are, well, they are split. Some of the politicians, they keep saying that it will increase the situation. We are answering them. To what extent increasing? So the Russians, they are here. So everything is increases such an extent that we can't simply survive. So the discussions are going on, and as well as about the tanks, Abrams, and so on. Luckily, those in Europe who also they were not in a position to supply immediately. I mean the German tanks Leopard, but some of the countries, including Germany, they recently they changed their stance, and so we are getting more. Still, we need more, but so I guess that when the capitals understand, European capitals, the Washington understand that as Estonia understands, as Latvia understands, like Lithuania understands, Poland understands that what is going on in Ukraine, it is the war of imperialism, Putin's imperialism or fascism against a democratic world. And so this is something which should unite all the democratic world, well, to resist Kremlin's plans and to stop them, and to help Russians finally, well, to think about their own identity, whom they are, and what they are building on the borders of this with Europe. So that's why unity and solidarity of the democratic countries with Ukraine at the time to defend the democratic values. This is something which is very important. I like that saying. It was Biden who many years ago in Munich conference said that we are to win not because of the example of our power, but because of power of our example. So that's why the democratic world has good examples of values which we are sharing, and these values should prevail over the interests. Interest is important, but the values are of the utmost importance. Well,
thank you. With 2 minutes left, could you just tell us a bit about what you're doing now to support the situation in Ukraine, and what gives you hope during this war?
Well, hope that the Ukrainians are united. Hope that we are not alone. Even today, when Eurovision contest is going on in Liverpool, we are watching it, and so we are proud that we have such a huge support and so many friends. This is what is very important. I'm proud that I'm a part of the Ukrainian Students Society, who is organizing the different way of assistance to those who are in need. The headquarters of this unity now moved from Kyiv to Lviv in Western Ukraine. So what I'm doing, I'm the only way at my 68, I can only to address colleagues and people while explaining what's going on, trying to find more support intellectual support, moral support, diplomatic support. Well, so addressing my colleagues, former colleagues in different countries, well, explaining them. So using the platforms like UNITAR, and today, thanks to you, well, the World Information Transfer, I'm on the board of Ukrainian Peace Council. Well, so we are doing there also some job to find the assistance to Ukraine, to encourage our partners around the world. As well, I'm on the board of directors of Ukrainian Association of Foreign Policy. And so I'm meeting with the Ukrainian students now only online with Zoom. Well, but well, they need this also this kind of the communication. So that's what exactly I'm doing.
Thank you, Ambassador Sergeyev, for the presentation. I'll now turn back to Dr. Durbach to close out.
Thank you very, very much, Ambassador, for a very relevant discussion about the fight of democracy against imperialism and autocracy. Your presentation gives a lot of food for thought, particularly to our students and the audience that has listened to your presentation. We are very glad that you were able to come and be with us, and we hope that we'll be able to see you soon in the near future. And in the meantime, have a very, very good week and take good care of yourself. Goodbye.